The air was thick with smoke and panic when two barefoot girls, no older than 5 or 6, rushed into the middle of Chestnut Avenue, their pale pink dresses torn and streaked with mud. "Please, someone help us." "Mommy's hurt," cried the older one, her voice trembling with fear. The younger clutched the leg of a ragged teddy bear, tear streaks cutting lines through the dirt on her cheeks. Cars slowed. People turned their heads. But nobody stopped. Not until a battered gray pickup truck screeched to a halt, its brakes wailing like a wounded animal. The man behind the wheel, wearing a faded Carhartt jacket, did not hesitate. He threw open the door and ran. This wasn't something he thought through. His instincts kicked in before his brain could catch up. "Where is she?" he shouted as he knelt beside the shivering twins. The older girl, Emma, pointed toward a narrow alleyway wedged between two crumbling brick buildings. "Back there," she whimpered. She fell. His name was Caleb Morgan, a 37-year-old handyman who had planned to finish a last-minute repair job before sunset. He lived on coffee and overtime pay, and spent his evenings helping his elderly neighbor fix leaky faucets. But the moment he saw those girls, something inside him moved. Without a word, Caleb sprinted into the alley. Broken glass crunched under his boots, and the scent of burnt oil filled the air. A single flickering bulb barely lit the chaos ahead, collapsed shelves, shattered jars, and a woman pinned beneath the wreckage. Her dark hair was tangled in wires and dust. He dropped to his knees. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered. Her lips barely moved. My babies. Are they?" "They're safe," Caleb said firmly. "I've got you now." He braced his shoulder against a heavy wooden beam, every muscle in his back straining. The beam groaned but refused to budge. "Come on," he muttered through clenched teeth. Sweat trickled down his brow. With one last push and a guttural grunt, the beam gave way. The woman's body trembled, her breathing shallow and uneven. Caleb slid one arm under her shoulders, the other beneath her legs, lifting her gently as if she weighed nothing. As he emerged from the alley carrying her, the girls screamed, "Mommy!" and rushed forward, grabbing at her clothing with their tiny hands. The crowd that had slowly gathered on the sidewalk didn't move toward her, they moved toward him. "You all right, man?" someone asked, reaching out. Caleb only nodded, chest heaving, dirt smudging his jawline. "She needs an ambulance," he said. "Call emergency services. Now." Emma clung to his leg like a lifeline. "Please don't go," she begged, her voice breaking. "I won't," he said softly, brushing the woman's hair away from her face. "I promise." In the distance, sirens began to wail. The woman, Rachel Bennett, 36 years old, was pale, but conscious when the paramedics lifted her onto the stretcher. Her hand reached out weakly, fingers grazing Caleb's wrist. "He saved us," she murmured. Caleb forced a tired smile. Anyone would have done the same. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. Most people just kept driving. As the flashing lights of the ambulance faded into the night, Caleb stood alone in the street, his shirt soaked in sweat and grime, back aching, hands trembling, but strangely calm. What he didn't know yet was that this single moment of compassion was about to rewrite the course of his life. The waiting room of St. Margaret's Medical Center buzzed quietly under the glare of humming fluorescent lights. Caleb sat hunched forward on a worn-out vinyl chair, his jacket draped across his knees, the smell of sawdust and ash still clinging to his clothes. Beside him, nestled under his arms like they belonged there, Emma and her sister Gracie slept soundly. Their heads rested on his shoulders, their trust given to him completely, as if they had known him forever. A nurse in white sneakers and scrubs approached quietly, her steps soft on the polished linoleum. "Sir," she whispered, nodding toward the girls. "Their mother is stable. You should feel proud. You got her here just in time." Caleb let out a slow, shaky breath, rubbing his hand over his face. "She's going to be okay?" he asked. The nurse smiled. "She's lucky you were nearby." He looked down at the sleeping twins, then back up at the nurse. "No, ma'am," he said quietly. "I'm the lucky one." It was close to midnight when the girls stirred. Emma blinked sleepily, rubbing her eyes. "Is Mommy okay?" "She's going to be just fine," Caleb said with a gentle smile. She's as strong as both of you. Gracie yawned, then looked up at him with wide eyes. Are you leaving now? He hesitated. The thought hadn't crossed his mind. He hadn't planned that far ahead. No, he finally said. Not until your mama wakes up. The nurse returned a few minutes later and quietly led Caleb into the post-op room. Rachel lay in the hospital bed, for drip at her side, heart monitor beeping softly. In the harsh light, she looked fragile, her skin pale and lips dry. But her eyes opened as he stepped inside. Hi, he said, awkward but sincere. She offered a faint smile. The girls. They're okay. They're sleeping. Safe. Rachel's eyes welled up. I don't even know your name. Caleb. Caleb Morgan. You have no idea what you've done for us, she whispered. Caleb shifted, unsure of what to say. He wasn't used to this kind of gratitude. Get some rest, he finally said. Your girls will be here when you wake up. As he turned to leave, she reached out and lightly touched his hand. Please don't go far. I won't, he said. And he meant it. A thin oxygen tube curved under Rachel Bennett's nose, and her dark hair framed a pale, tired face. Yet, when her eyes fluttered open, there was still a flicker of strength behind them. She blinked slowly, adjusting to the sterile brightness of the hospital room. You stayed, she whispered. Caleb Morgan nodded from the foot of her bed, standing with a quiet awkwardness. Felt wrong leaving the girls here alone. They're outside with one of the nurses, he added. They're okay. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I thought I was going to die in that alley, she said, her voice trembling. And then you just appeared. He offered a small shrug. Guess I was meant to take that road. She looked at him for a long while, taking in the worn denim jeans, the weather-beaten boots, the calloused hands that told a story of long hours and hard labor. Tired etched every line on his face, but his presence was calm, steady. What do you do? She asked quietly. Mostly carpentry, he replied. Fix things. Patch up porches, hang doors, stuff like that. Enough to keep food on the table and my boy in school. You have a son? Rachel asked, her voice softening. Caleb nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Yeah, Noah. He just turned 9 last week. Thinks I'm a superhero, 'cause I can build shelves without reading the instructions. Rachel let out a weak laugh, the sound rasping but warm. Well, you kind of were one today. Caleb glanced away, sheepish. I just did what anyone else should have done. But both of them knew that wasn't true. The room went quiet again, save for the steady beeping of machines and the faint hum of life-supporting technology. After a long pause, Rachel said, If you hadn't stopped, I don't think anyone else would have. Caleb's jaw tightened. Maybe, he said, but your girls deserve their mom. I couldn't live with myself if I just kept driving. Her expression softened, her voice barely above a whisper. You sound like someone who's lost something already. It took him a moment to answer. My wife passed away 2 years ago, he said finally. Cancer. It happened fast. The air in the room shifted, growing heavier with unspoken understanding. Rachel's gratitude morphed into sympathy. I'm so sorry. Caleb nodded, lowering his voice. Thank you. I've been learning to live again. Mostly, 'cause of my kid. He keeps me grounded. Rachel gave him a weak smile. You must be a good dad. He chuckled quietly. Sometimes I build furniture. Sometimes I burn dinner. But Noah still thinks I hung the moon, so I must be doing okay. That earned a genuine laugh from her. It echoed gently in the small room, even making a passing nurse stop and smile from the doorway. When visiting hours came to an end, Caleb straightened up with a sigh. I should let you rest. Wait, Rachel said, her voice suddenly firmer. Will I see you again? He hesitated. For a moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. If you ever need someone to fix a squeaky door or build a bookshelf, you know who to call. Caleb Morgan, she repeated softly, as if engraving the name into memory. I won't forget. 2 days later, Caleb was back at work in the northern suburbs, patching up a fence under the relentless afternoon sun. His shirt was soaked with sweat, Sawdust clung to his forearms, and the scent of wood glue clung to the air around him. Then he heard the crunch of tires on gravel behind him. Turning, he wiped his hands on his jeans just as a sleek silver Mercedes eased into the dirt lot. The thing gleamed like it had never seen a pothole in its life. Even the neighborhood kids stopped riding their bikes just to stare. The driver's door opened, and Rachel stepped out. She wore a crisp white blouse and a pair of jeans, her hair brushed neatly, though a faint bruise still colored her forehead. Behind her, Emma and Gracie hopped out, each clutching a fistful of wildflowers tied with ribbon. Caleb blinked, caught off guard. "Rachel?" he asked. "You look better." She smiled gently. "We came to thank you." "Properly." The twins rushed up and extended the bouquets with beaming pride. "For you, Mr. Caleb," said Gracie, her eyes bright. "Mom says heroes get flowers." Caleb knelt down and took the flowers like they were made of gold. "Well," he said, his voice thickening, "this might be the nicest gift I've ever been given." Rachel stepped closer, hands clasped together. "I didn't tell you who I was that night." He raised an eyebrow. "Who you were?" "I own Reynolds Logistics," she said quietly. "That alley, the one you found me in, it's behind one of our distribution warehouses. I was there checking inventory reports myself. Thought it'd be safer if I saw the numbers firsthand. I was wrong." Caleb stood, stunned. "You're the owner?" She nodded. "I run the company. Took over after my dad retired." Caleb scratched the back of his neck, flustered. "You don't owe me anything, Rachel. I just did what had to be done." Her expression softened. "But that's just it, Caleb. Most people don't do what you did." She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small white envelope. "Please," she said gently, "just take this." "This isn't charity," Rachel said gently, holding out the envelope. "It's gratitude." Caleb Morgan shook his head immediately, the kind of stubborn shake a man gives when he's made up his mind. "I can't take that." Rachel took a small step closer. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Caleb, you risked your life for a stranger. Let me at least help you fix that old truck of yours." He smiled faintly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Truck runs just fine. Just grumbles a little when it's cold out." She laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. "You're impossible." His eyes sparkled slightly, the corners of his mouth lifting. "That's what I've been told." For a few moments, neither of them said anything. A soft breeze drifted through the street, carrying with it the sound of children laughing somewhere nearby. Emma and Gracie were out gathering dandelions near the sidewalk, their giggles ringing like wind chimes through the afternoon air. Rachel watched them with a quiet kind of joy in her eyes. "You know," she said softly, "they still talk about you." Caleb looked down, modest as always. "They say you showed up like an angel." His expression gentled. "I'm no angel. Just a dad who knows what it feels like to be terrified of losing someone." Something about his voice, or maybe the honesty behind his words, made her fall silent. She nodded slowly, then smiled, really smiled. Not the polite kind people wear at meetings or in passing, but the kind that reaches deep. The kind that warms a room. Maybe, just maybe, it was the kind of smile the world needed more of. Before leaving that afternoon, Rachel turned to him and said one more thing. "I don't believe in coincidences, Caleb. Maybe we were meant to meet." He watched as the silver Mercedes pulled away, the twins waving from the back seat, their laughter echoing down the quiet street. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Caleb felt something unfamiliar. That whisper in the soul that says, maybe, just maybe. 3 weeks passed. Caleb Morgan's life settled back into its regular rhythm. Early mornings, long days at job sites, late evenings spent helping Noah with math homework at the kitchen table. He kept himself busy, productive, and he tried not to think about Rachel too often. But sometimes, when he was sanding a board or fixing a creaky hinge, her voice would drift back to him like an echo. Maybe we were meant to meet. He'd shake it off, remind himself she lived in a different world. One of tailored suits, business meetings, and corner offices. His world was made of sawdust, bent nails, and overdue bills. Still, He couldn't shake the memory of two little girls who had fallen asleep on his shoulders in a hospital waiting room. One evening after dinner, Noah climbed onto Caleb's lap with a half-busted toy truck in hand. "Dad, can we fix it?" he asked, holding up the broken plastic with hopeful eyes. Caleb smiled. "Of course we can, buddy. We can fix just about anything." The two of them got to work side by side, gluing, adjusting, and bringing the toy back to life. When they finished, Noah grinned wide, showing off the gap from a missing front tooth. "You know what Mrs. Clark said today?" he asked. "What's that?" "She said we should be kind every day, even when nobody's watching. You do that, right?" Caleb paused, caught off guard by his son's words. "What makes you say that?" "Because you helped that lady," Noah answered proudly. "And you didn't even know her." Caleb ruffled his son's hair, heart swelling with quiet pride. "I guess," he said softly, "I just did what I'd hoped someone would do for us, if we ever needed it." The next evening, just as Caleb was locking up his small woodworking shop, a pair of headlights cut across the gravel driveway. The silver Mercedes rolled in slow and smooth, its headlights cutting through the dusk. He wiped his hands on a rag and stepped outside. Rachel climbed out of the driver's seat. She looked different this time, healthier, more confident, but her eyes still held the same kindness. Emma and Gracie followed, each carrying a paper bag decorated with crayon drawings and little flowers around the edges. "Evening," Caleb said, raising an eyebrow. "You making this a habit?" Rachel smiled. "You never called me back." He frowned, confused. "I never got a call." She chuckled, the sound light and teasing. "That's because you never answer unknown numbers. I left a voicemail." Caleb rubbed the back of his neck again. "Old habit. Telemarketers love me." Her laugh softened the space between them. "Well," she said, "now that I've tracked you down, you're not getting away." The girls ran forward, holding up their bags with pride. "We brought cookies," Gracie announced. "We baked them ourselves." Caleb crouched down, taking the bag like it was treasure. "Well now, how can I say no to that? Thank you, chefs." Rachel glanced around the shop. Wooden planks stacked neatly in the corner, toolboxes arranged with purpose, blueprints pinned to the wall. It was organized chaos, the kind that only made sense to the person who lived in it. "So this is where the magic happens," she said. He nodded. "My little kingdom." She walked closer and ran her hand across the smooth top of a recently sanded table. "You built all of this?" "All except the roof," he said. "Still leaks when it rains." There was a pause. Then she spoke gently. "Caleb, I came tonight because you gave me my life back. And I want to give something in return." Caleb raised an eyebrow, his brow furrowing as he glanced down at the envelope again. "Rachel, I told you. I don't need this. It's not charity I'm after." She cut him off gently but firmly. "It's not charity, Caleb. It's a partnership." He blinked, caught off guard. "A partnership?" Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a folded set of papers. She handed it to him carefully. "Reynolds Logistics is launching a new community initiative," she explained. "We're rebuilding homes and workshops for workers who've been overlooked, folks who give everything but still get left behind. I want you to lead it." He stared at her like she had just asked him to run for office. "Me?" "Yes, you," she said with a soft smile. "You've got the heart, the hands, and the kind of integrity that's rare these days. I'll handle the funding, the red tape, the publicity. You handle the building." She paused. "And Caleb, it's a paid position. And I mean well paid." For a long moment he said nothing. The air buzzed with the faint chirping of crickets. Somewhere in the background, the twins giggled inside the truck, their laughter bubbling like a mountain stream. Finally, Caleb spoke, his voice low. "Why me?" Rachel met his gaze. "Because," she said softly, "you didn't just save my life that night. You reminded me what real compassion looks like, when the rest of the world feels cold. I want that spirit to be part of everything we build." Caleb looked down at the contract again, the papers feeling heavier in his hands than they should have. The whole moment felt surreal, like waking up inside a dream he never dared to have. "You really think I can do this?" he asked. Rachel's eyes softened. I don't think so, she said quietly. I know so. He let out a shaky laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. You do realize I still sleep on a folding cot, right? She burst out laughing. Then I guess we'll start with upgrading that. Their eyes met, and for one brief second, something shifted in the space between them. No walls, no worlds apart, just two people who had both been broken, standing at the threshold of something new. Weeks turned into months. The Walker Reynolds Community Project began as a small spark. An idea. A blueprint sketched on a diner napkin. But soon, it grew into something bigger than either of them expected. Caleb hit the road, working his way through towns, patching up roofs in forgotten neighborhoods, rebuilding wheelchair ramps for aging veterans, repairing porches for widows who hadn't heard laughter in years. He didn't do it for the paycheck. He did it because every nail he hammered, every plank he replaced, reminded him that small acts of kindness could build something stronger than steel. Rachel worked alongside him when she could, often trading her polished heels for work boots. Together, they turned crumbling spaces into safe places. Together, they planted hope. One evening, after wrapping up a project for a struggling single mother, they stood in the bed of Caleb's pickup truck, watching the sunset blaze across the horizon like a painting. In the backyard, Emma, Gracie, and Noah chased each other across the tall grass, their laughter dancing through the warm evening air. Rachel's hair was pulled back, but a few strands blew loose across her cheek as she turned to look at him. You know, she said quietly, before I met you, I was buried in work. I thought success meant being in control all the time. She paused. But the day you carried me out of that alley, you showed me what real strength looks like. Caleb turned to her, a slow smile tugging at his lips. You rebuilt your entire company, Rachel. That's real strength. She shook her head gently. No, that was you. You brought me back. The words hit him harder than she expected. He looked at her, and for a moment, neither of them looked away. The air between them was still, solid, honest. Rachel, he began softly. I know, she interrupted gently. You're not doing this for thanks. He nodded. Exactly. That's why it matters, she whispered. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything words could not say. Then Rachel leaned in slightly and asked, Do you ever think some people are meant to cross paths twice? Once by accident and once by choice. Caleb felt his heart knock softly against his ribs. Yeah, he said, his voice thick. I do now. From the yard, the twins called out, their voices high and eager. Mom, Mr. Caleb, come see the fireflies. They both turned, stepping down from the truck bed. Out in the field, a gentle glow lit up the tall grass like a sea of tiny stars. Fireflies flickered and danced, the whole landscape coming alive in the twilight, as if the universe itself had decided to mark the moment. Laughter echoed around them, 3 children, alive in a world of light. And beside them stood 2 adults who, not long ago, were complete strangers. Now, side by side, they watched this new life unfold. Because sometimes, kindness is not just an act. It is the beginning of everything. A helping hand. A moment of courage. The quiet decision to stop when everyone else drives past. Caleb had never considered himself a hero. But that one moment on Chestnut Avenue didn't just rescue a family. It built one. And it proved something simple. Something profound. Kindness always finds its way home. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. And hey, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.